Keep that baby quiet or get off this plane. The man's voice was sharp enough to cut the air. Heads turned, eyes rolled, phones lifted. A black single dad stood in the aisle, rocking his crying newborn with shaking arms while the cabin filled with judgment. Then, from 3 rows back, a single mom rose slowly and walked toward him. About to do something nobody expected, the plane had barely reached cruising height when the crying started. Not a soft whimper, not the kind you can ignore. It was a raw, desperate cry that came from deep inside a tiny body that didn't know how to be anywhere else. The sound bounced off plastic seats and narrow walls, turning every breath into tension. People shifted, sighed, and pushed earbuds deeper. The cabin lights were dim, but irritation was bright on every face. Marcus Reed stood near his seat in the middle row, holding his baby boy Jonah against his chest. Marcus was in his early 30s, tall, tired, wearing a simple hoodie and jeans that looked like they'd been slept in. His left shoulder carried a diaper bag. His right arm carried the weight of his whole life. Jonah was 7 weeks old, small enough to fit in one hand, loud enough to shake a plane full of adults into anger. Marcus bounced gently, hummed. He walked the cramped aisle in careful steps, whispering comfort into Jonah's ear. Nothing worked. Jonah's face was red, fists tight, voice cracking with need. Marcus's heart hit a wall of helplessness. He wasn't embarrassed. He was frightened. Frightened that Jonah was hurting. Frightened that he was failing. Frightened that the world would decide he didn't belong here. 2 months earlier, Marcus hadn't planned to be flying alone with a newborn. He hadn't planned to be a single dad at all. Life doesn't ask permission. His wife Aisha had died during delivery. It happened fast, cruelly, in a white room that smelled of antiseptic and hope. 1 minute she was squeezing his hand, telling him to look at their son. The next, machines were screaming, doctors were moving too quickly, and Marcus was standing, still in a kind of shock that felt like falling through ice. When they told him she was gone, his world split in two before and after. Before, he had a partner. After, he had a baby and a silence that never ended. The weeks that followed were a blur of diapers, bottles, and grief that arrived like a heavy coat he couldn't take off. At night, he would pace the living room with Jonah on his shoulder and stare at the empty side of the couch where Aisha used to sit, laughing at the baby's tiny sneezes. He learned how to warm milk just right, how to swaddle without choking, how to smile while his chest begged to collapse. He talked to Aisha's photo every morning, promising her that Jonah would be safe, that Jonah would be loved, that he would be enough. This flight was for Aisha's mother. She lived across the country. She had begged to meet Jonah. She had been too sick to travel. Marcus had saved for the ticket by taking extra shifts at the warehouse, sleeping 4 hours a night, telling himself the trip mattered. It was not just a visit. It was a bridge between Jonah and the family that would carry pieces of his mother. Now that bridge felt like it was shaking in his hands. A man across the aisle leaned forward, his face tight, saying Marcus should control his child. Another woman muttered that a plane wasn't a daycare. Someone laughed once, the kind of laugh that stings more than words. The flight attendant tried to help, offering warm water and a sympathetic look. But the cabin mood had already turned sharp. Then a loud voice rose from the back. A businessman in a press suit, eyes cold, said, "Keep that baby quiet or get off this plane." His tone was not tired. It was cruel, like Marcus had chosen this moment to annoy people. Marcus froze. Every eye pinned him. He felt heat climb his neck. Not because he had done wrong, but because the world loves to shame a man who is already breaking. He opened his mouth to apologize, even though he didn't know one. But no sound came out. He looked down at Jonah, tears fresh on the baby's cheeks, and his own eyes blurred. 3 rows back, a woman stood up. Her name was Elena Torres. Early 30s, brown skin, soft curls tied loose, wearing a faded denim jacket over a simple dress. She held a toddler on her hip, a little girl with sleepy eyes and a stuffed rabbit clutched in her fist. Elena had been quiet the whole flight, soothing her child with gentle taps on the back. Listening to Jonah's cries with a different kind of attention than the rest of the cabin, Elena knew that cry. She knew the panic behind it. She knew the look on Marcus's face, too. 2 years earlier, she had sat in a hospital room, watching her own partner walk away. He had decided fatherhood wasn't for him. He left without shouting, without violence, just absence. She became a single mom overnight. With rent due and a baby who screamed through nights like a siren, she had learned in those days that people love to judge mothers in public. But they judge single fathers even harder, because the world expects men to be strong and silent. It's not tender and overwhelmed. Alina had promised herself she would never be the kind of person who adds weight to someone already carrying too much. She walked down the aisle slowly, careful not to wake her toddler. The businessman watched her, annoyed, expecting a complaint. Others leaned in, waiting for the drama to grow. Alina stopped beside Marcus. She looked at Jonah, then at Marcus's hands, white-knuckled from trying not to fall apart. She did not ask questions first. She did not make a speech. She spoke gently, low enough that only he could hear. She told him she had formula, a different brand, and sometimes babies' stomachs do not agree with what we think is right. She told him she also had a small pacifier that helped her daughter. When she was tiny, she asked if he wanted to try. Marcus blinked, stunned by kindness. He nodded. His voice didn't work yet. Alina sat in the empty seat beside him. She washed her hands with sanitizer like it was a ritual. Then she did the unthinkable to the people watching. She offered to hold Jonah. A few passengers stiffened. Some looked offended, like boundaries were being crossed. But Alina didn't care about their comfort. She cared about the child. Marcus hesitated, not because he didn't trust her, but because in grief you start believing you must carry everything alone. Alina waited without pressure. Then Marcus handed Jonah over, slow, like passing something, fragile and holy. Alina cradled Jonah with the ease of a woman who had done this 1,000 times through exhaustion. She swayed gently, humming a soft tune that sounded like a bedtime window opening. She offered the pacifier. Jonah resisted for a second, then latched on. His crying softened into hiccups, then into a quiet, shaky breath. Alina patted his back. In slow circles, the kind of touch that tells a baby the world is safe. Within a minute, Jonah fell asleep against her shoulder. The cabin changed without anyone saying a word. The same people who rolled their eyes now stared in silence. Some looked ashamed, some looked relieved. The businessman turned away as if the scene had slapped him. A woman near the window wiped her eyes quickly and pretended it was allergies. The flight attendant paused, smiling softly, then walked on, letting the moment belong to them. Marcus sat there frozen, watching his son sleep for the first time in an hour. His throat ached. He looked at Alina like she had just pulled him up from deep water. He tried to thank her, but his voice broke. Alina smiled gently and told him he didn't have to apologize for a baby being a baby. She told him he was doing better than he thought. She told him Jonah could feel his love even through the crying. Marcus swallowed hard. The words he had been holding for weeks slipped out, quiet and shaking. He told her his wife had died, told her he hadn't slept. He told her he was scared every day that he wasn't enough. Alina didn't flinch. She didn't pity him. She just nodded like she understood the shape of that fear. She told him something simple that landed like truth. She told him being enough doesn't mean being perfect. It means staying. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Not grief. Grief would stay. But the loneliness around it softened. He watched Alina hand Jonah back gently, as if returning a treasure. For the rest of the flight, Alina checked on them quietly. She shared a small bottle-warming trick. She made Jonah smile once when he awoke, and Marcus laughed for the first time. Since the funeral, surprised by the sound of his own joy, her toddler, Sophia, reached out to touch Jonah's tiny fingers. And Jonah gripped back, as if he already knew safety when he felt it. When the plane landed, the cabin stood to exit. People filed past Marcus and Alina with softer faces, one older. Man patted Marcus's shoulder and whispered that he was doing great. A woman offered a small packet of baby wipes. Little gestures too late to erase the earlier cruelty, but enough to show the moment had changed them. At the gate, Marcus turned to Alina again, wanting to say something that mattered. He thanked her properly this time, voice steady. Alina shrugged lightly and said, Single parents don't survive by watching others drown. They exchange numbers. Not with romance forced into the air, but with a quiet agreement that help should not be rare. As Marcus walked toward baggage claim, with Jonah sleeping against his chest, he felt the weight of the trip shift. He was still a single father, still grieving, still learning. But he was not invisible. He was not alone. Sometimes the unthinkable is not a big rescue. Sometimes it is a stranger choosing kindness in the middle of a loud world. That choice can change a whole flight.
Oh.
Sometimes it can change a whole life.